For the first time since classical antiquity, a Western artist asserts his own vision, and Western art finds its own distinctive style, Romanesque. Although the Roman Empire was conquered by the barbarians and the lands of Western Europe were overrun by pagan tribes in the Dark Ages, Roman civilization, and above all Roman Christianity, triumphed in the long run. Converted to the new faith, the former barbarians became the heirs of Rome and the founders of modern Europe. In the 11th and 12th centuries, the period we call Romanesque, there was a remarkable revival of art and especially architecture, when, in the words of a contemporary, it was as if the whole earth had cast off her old age and was clothing herself everywhere in a white garment of churches. Two of the most powerful forces moulding the development of Romanesque art and architecture were pilgrimage and the monastic movement. And the Romanesque church here at Vézelay in France embodies both. Benedictine monastery and starting point on the pilgrimage route to Santiago in Spain.
The story of Vézelay echoes the story of Europe during the crucial years of transition between the 9th century and the 12th. It was founded in the 860s in the great cultural and artistic revival of the French Emperor Charlemagne. It was burned down by the Vikings in the violent years of the 9th and 10th centuries. At that time, Western Europe was assailed on every side by Slavs, Magyars, Saracens, and Vikings, and many people thought that Christian civilization itself might not pull through. In response, powerful dynasties built great strings of fortresses in which their beleaguered populations could shelter. In the 1100s, Europe turned the corner. Suddenly, almost as if the passing of the millennium was the release, we see a dramatic revival in the use of monumental sculpture and large-scale architecture, such as had only been glimpsed fitfully in the previous centuries.
The cult of saints and the passion for pilgrimage to their shrines were dominant features of medieval culture. One of the most famous was the pilgrimage to Santiago in Spain, because the church was believed to house one of the sacred relics of Christendom, the bones of St. James, Santiago in Spanish, one of Christ's 12 apostles.
From the top of the tower at Vézelay, you can still make out the old way of St. James winding its way through the hills on its way to Spain. It's astonishing to think that hundreds of thousands of men and women made that pilgrimage during the medieval period. They undertook such arduous journeys for a multitude of reasons: to plead for divine help, to ask for the cure of illness, to give thanks for favors given, to ask for penance for their sins. But above all, they went for the salvation of their souls.
To achieve the state of grace conferred by his relics, they traveled great distances. On foot, by boat, on horseback, wearing the typical pilgrim's garb, the hat, the staff, the cockleshell symbol of St. James. But pilgrimage was not only a spiritual force, it was a dynamic, transforming element in society, enabling the exchange of ideas, goods, and especially of money. There was a great deal of money to be made from pilgrimage. Indeed, it was the offerings to the saints and their relics by pilgrims in their thousands that helped pay the construction costs of the great Romanesque pilgrim churches lining the main roads to Santiago. There were 4 main routes that went through France to Spain. These roads joined at Puente la Reina in Spain, where a single road passed through Burgos and León and culminated at Santiago de Compostela. In the center of France, the major starting point was the Church of Mary Magdalene at Vézelay.
This great Romanesque abbey church at Vézelay, in the heart of Burgundy, is built far too large for the needs of its local population.
Paul Crossley is a distinguished architectural historian whose special interest is Romanesque and Gothic architecture.
It served primarily two functions. It housed a large and prosperous community of Benedictine monks. And secondly, and most importantly, it was one of the foremost places of pilgrimage in France. For here was contained the relics of St. Mary Magdalene. Thousands of pilgrims came through the western portals of this church, and they found themselves in a sacred way. A long avenue of arches and aisles which led them to the distant and luminous choir where the body of St. Mary Magdalene was contained. To the devout medieval Christian, a holy relic had the power to perform miracles. Even the tiniest fragment of the body of a saint, encased in its reliquary, represented the power, the presence of the saint. Much of the art of the time was geared to the cult of saints and their relics. Medieval artists lavished their skill on these reliquaries. Only the most precious jewels and workmanship were considered worthy to hold, for example, a splinter of wood from the cross of the crucifixion. Or the skull of St. John the Baptist. Or the cloak of the Virgin Mary, or the arm of a bishop, or a saint.